All right. Officially, good morning. Welcome. This is our very first, but not last, community event on the somewhat new online academy community that Lindsay, that is also joining us here today, is helping out with, together with pretty much everything else on the academy. Pretty much without her, me and Andrew would not be able to do what we do. So thank you so much, Lindsay, and thank you for joining us this morning. Fantastic. The topic of the day is software updates in Intune. Fairly quick rundown to what's going on, what options that are available, and how to troubleshoot it when things do not go as planned, which lo and behold, actually do happen from time to time. I spend most of my Wednesday this week helping out in one environment where software updates were not applying as they should. So we figured we'd share a little bit about those experiences. It's a fairly short session. It's only 20 minutes long here, so it'll be short and sweet. We're going to make a tiny break about halfway because we do have some hard to see perhaps, but this is a shiny ViaMonstra jacket that we're gonna raffle out. So I have prepared a little setup for that. It's fairly quick process, only takes a minute or so, but more on that later. All right, let's get to it. Short agenda, introduction, reporting, compliance, and troubleshooting. That's where we are for these next 20 minutes here. And with that being said, Andrew, what options are there in Intune?
So quite a few, and we're getting more options every month, it seems. So just to start off, some of the primary options that you'll work with are the different policy types that we have, and we're going to do a brief dive into some of these. But the first two I want to mention are the Windows 10 and 11 update rings. These are your standard. Think of these update rings are working with your standard monthly patch cadence, your cumulative updates that get released every month. Your update rings are largely going to control when your devices will receive those updates, when they reboot, and all of those things around your normal monthly patching. Then we also have Windows 10 and 11 feature update policies. Now, these help us control which devices receive or don't receive certain Windows feature updates as they're released. For example, we just recently saw Windows 11 24H2 get released. We can use these feature update policies to allow that update to come down to some pilot devices through Intune and Windows Update for Business, or we can prevent it from coming down to the rest of our devices. So those policies will help us do that. We also have the deployment service. Now, the deployment service has been around for about 2 years now, but has improved and seen feature growth over that time. The deployment service now allows us to do things like manage driver and firmware updates in a programmatic way within Intune, which is a huge improvement from what we had in the past. Was just, yes, we'll allow drivers to go down to our devices, or no, we won't, without any sort of control at all. For some organizations, it works, but for many others, we want a little bit more control, and the deployment service is going to allow us to do that. Back at Ignite as well, you may have heard that the hot patching is coming to Windows 11 and currently out in preview. And so the deployment service is something that allows for that as well. And then we get to our expedited updates. This is another policy type that's in Intune. And our expedited updates allow us to configure things like hot patch, but not only hot patch. It will allow us to release security updates that are released on a monthly basis outside of our standard update rings. This was a fantastic feature that was released because in the past we had to manipulate our update rings on a monthly basis if we wanted patches, security patches, to come down sooner than our cumulative updates. Our expedited updates will allow us to send those security patches down and reboot our devices very quickly without adjusting our update rings. Then we'll talk a little bit about delivery optimization as well. And like many other DO uses, this is just going to help our clients be more effective on where they're downloading update content from. With a little help from our device's neighbors, we can save a lot of bandwidth. So on that note, Johan, do you want to give us a little look on what some of these things look like in Intune?
Yes, I do. So I'm just going to jump into one of my Intune tenants. It's not too complicated. We did have a question that was starting to type in an answer to, and that was regarding hot patch, if there is a dependency on auto patch for those. Currently, they are integrated with the auto patch, and that was something they announced at Ignite. But in the public preview, there is still an option to configure it yourself as part of one of those in the same area as expedited updates are. But they did mention at Microsoft Ignite that there is a dependency on auto patch for that feature currently. If that's going to change, I don't know. If it's going to ever come to Config Manager, I don't know. But so far, Intune is the only platform that supports it, management of it. So I'm just trying to log into my trustworthy Intune tenant, and apparently it's a bit slow this morning. That is what we say. What can possibly go wrong in a live demo? And well, this is pretty much it.
Intune not having its second cup of coffee yet this morning.
Probably not. But here we are, finally in. So if I scoot over to devices, I can either go to Windows Update right in this fairly long left-hand menu. I'm usually lazy, so I usually click Windows first and then go to Updates because it makes that list shorter, makes it easier to find. But this is where you configure your update rings, your quality updates, and this is where that expedited updates were that Andrew mentioned. So let me start by showing that one so we get that one out of the door. But if you click quality updates and you create a policy for this one, you can see that you have the expedite policy and you have the Windows quality update policy. If you click that one, that's where demo for a good name as any. That's where we have that, hot patch option that we can go ahead and enable here. So that's where that one lives. But if we go back to the other policies, Microsoft recently changed the UI here. They did that now in October. But in the update rings, this is where you either configure the rings yourself, as I have done here. You can also import from the open baseline Intune project some ready-made rings that you can start off with. It's a really good jumpstart kit if you're fairly new into Intune. And then you, of course, have the managed option where you allow Microsoft to control and configure Windows Auto Patch to you. And this is something that you can evaluate pretty much on your own. You don't have to enroll all your devices to it. You can try it out on a few and see if you like it. But it's basically Microsoft doing the work instead of you doing the work. But in these update rings, you usually have at least a few of them, maybe a few pilot, maybe a few production. And the difference is typically, okay, when do you want them to start look for updates? May have different deadlines and grace periods, etc. But in general, your updates will look quite similar to what you configure. The other types of updates are the feature updates. They have a weird dependency. They are actually also depending on the deployment service. And we will show you that in the troubleshooting session. So that means when you set up these guys, not only do you need to configure them here and do basically tell what version of Windows you would like to go to. Should it be an option or should it be required? And when should it be available? Either right now or a specific date or a bunch of dates so you have some sort of gradual rollout there. But for these to function, you do need to have basic telemetry enabled also, and your tenant need to be set up for this. So if I cancel out of this one, head over to tenant administration, go to connectors and tokens, go to Windows data. This is the things that needs to be turned on also for this one to be happy, because there is a license requirement for the deployment service. I will show you how you can verify that through a healthy dose of graph later. but that's what you need to configure. You also need to have a device configuration policy for telemetry. I happen to call mine updates and telemetry. I thought I had it for update and telemetry. There we go, update without the S. How could I? Anyhow, if you look at these settings down here, this one, you don't need a full one for deployment server to work. You basic is just fine, but I happen to use full because I use that data for other things. But that one, in addition to the other stuff that we use for Windows Update for Business, etc., I do recommend configuring. But these need also be there. Your devices need to be enrolled in that deployment service, or there will be no updates offered to devices. And that is, of course, not intended. Now, if I go back to my Windows updates here, Andrew did mention also the driver updates option. So this is driver and firmware. And you can either have Microsoft manage that for you, or you can do what I have done here. In this case, I have defined my own policies, and I like to do it with a good old total control method and doing it on a power model basis. So when I approve the different BIOS updates from here and drivers, I like to see them, so I only target one model at a time. So I can go ahead and say that this update, all right, fine, approve it, and I'm going to do that on New Year's Eve, and you know, off we go. No, I won't, but that's where you schedule it. So, but that was just a high-level overview on where to configure them, and that means it is raffle time. So there's a little platform we're going to use together. It's not terribly complicated, way less complicated than Intune. It's called Swagit. And I'm going to start a new raffle here. And that leads to a link and obviously a number. I'm going to post that link in the chat. So I can find the chat. I will do that. Give me just a moment. So if you click this link, just punch in your name. We're going to give it like a minute here, and then we're going to do a raffle, and then, well, life will be good. I see a good few people joining in. Apparently there is an interest for this jacket here.
It's pretty shiny swag, I must say.
Well, it's warm and toasty. There's a fleece inside. It's have it in a few different sizes, so that will work out.
Excellent.
But yeah, 5 more seconds, and then I think we're gonna hit the draw button here. All right. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
I am. Let's do it. All right, Mr. Greg Gilbert. If you can be so kindly, first of all, congratulations. But if you can simply drop me an email with the size that you happen to want on the shirt. My email is simple, first name, last name @mirolos.com. You might have been receiving emails from us in the past. We have a tendency of sending them out. So I'm putting that email in the chat. So please drop me an email and get me the address, and we get that one shipped straight away to you. All right. Andrew, good sir. Compliance. And I was thinking not just compliance, but demo of compliance. What do you say?
Sounds great. Sounds great to me.
I mean, it's great that we can configure them, but management usually wants to know that machines actually are patched.
Exactly. It does look like we have to adjust one minor thing.
Permissions. I shall do it. Coming up shortly. How about now?
That looks good. Let's go like this.
Yes, sir.
All right, perfect. So in terms of compliance in Intune, compliance reporting, we do also have some additional options there. We have some built-in options for that are native to the platform for monitoring our update rings, whether or not they've been applied successfully, as well as the status of the updates coming down to the clients. Similarly, we have the same type of reports for feature updates policies. There is a little bit of data collection that we have to configure. Fortunately, they're the exact same settings that Johan showed us already. We have some configuration on the tenant side as well as the client side, but they're very straightforward. I'm going to also talk a little bit about and show you the Windows Update for Business reports. This is something that is not native to the platform, but uses a lot of the data that's coming into the platform and those telemetry options that we've configured for our clients. So we'll talk about some of those details as well. And then just provide some additional reports and dashboards that the community has put out there for our use. This might be a good time to ask Johan, are we going to be posting some links alongside our video afterwards?
Yes, I've already prepared a bunch of troubleshooting links that I will share in the chat here shortly. So
excellent.
All is good.
Well, that'll save us a little bit of time, and this is something that there are so many options in Intune and so much we can cover in 20 minutes or so that just providing resources hopefully will help you along your journey a little bit as well. So I have some that I'll share in a little bit. All that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the options that we have for us first. So if we go over here into our Intune Admin Center, take a look at our devices, just like Johan showed earlier, and then we can go to Monitor. And in the Monitor section, we have a couple of different reports that we can look at. We have our feature update policies with alerts, our expedited quality policies with alerts, our driver update policies. So all of these 4 reports right here are based on those 4 policy types that we talked about a little bit ago. Just to give you a little bit of an idea here, first, we can take a look at our per update ring deployment state. And this is going to show that most basic level that I mentioned. As we look through all of our update rings, do we have devices that are not successfully receiving those policies? Do we have some that have failed? Or are our devices receiving that policy correctly? So fortunately, you can see in a small lab, we have most of our devices are receiving these policies successfully, but it's not uncommon to see some devices in a production environment that do have errors or have failed. So we can go and view why those policies are not being applied to specific devices. So this is at a basic level, just talking about the policy assignment itself. But if we go over to our reports and Windows updates, here we have a number of options available to us to start looking at that compliance. So on our summary tab here, we can just refresh these. It'll take just a minute to load this information, but we'll see summaries of our feature update policies, our expedited quality update policies, and our driver updates here. So here we can see, again, a summary of, on the feature update side, I have a Windows 11 23H2 feature update policy. And we can see that 2 devices have actually been successfully updated using that policy. But again, if we had errors, if we had started a rollback of those feature updates, we would see all of that information here in the summary. Similar type of story with our expedited updates as well as our driver updates as well. Now, I don't have as many policies for these in my environment, but you can see that we get that nice little summary right here. If we want to start to drill down into this information, then we can go over to our reports tab. And there are many reports that are now available to us surrounding feature updates here. So we have a few different feature update reports available to us. One showing the feature update status themselves, the device readiness report, which will help us as we move along in our Windows 11 upgrade journey or just to the new version of Windows 11. This report will help us determine whether or not our devices are ready for that next upgrade. And then we have the compatibility risks report as well, which can be used in conjunction with this to help us along our upgrade or update journey. And we also have expedited update reports here and driver update reports as well. But I did want to actually click on this one here, the Windows Update Distribution Report. This one is going to be surrounding your normal update rings, your standard Windows updates. And when we click on this, we can select specific scope tags if you are tagging your devices, or we can select all of our devices in our tenant and generate a report on what updates look like across our portfolio. And this will take just a moment here. And you can see here, we get a nice overview of each monthly B and D release for our updates. We can click through these, drill down, and see additional information here. Now, that's what we have available natively. Real quickly here, I do want to also show, and I'll provide some resources for setting this up, our Windows Update for Business reports. These are going to rely on an Azure subscription and log analytics. We can view this information and set it up from our M365 Admin Center. We'll go to the Health node here, Software Updates, and then there's a Windows tab. Now, I have this set up already, so we can just go over to these reports, but when you configure it for the first time, you'll need to hit this Configure Settings button. But real quick, if we pop over to these, you'll see that using that information available through the telemetry configuration that we've set earlier, we send that information up to Log Analytics, and we have various tabs here that will help us drill down into the overview of our quality updates, our feature updates, our driver updates, and just our normal update rings, just like we're seeing with everything else. We can see the overall update status for those different profile types, as well as drill down into various individual device statuses if we need to troubleshoot something. Very handy resource to have here. I recommend setting it up. This information is ingested into Log Analytics free for 30 days. But if you do want to keep it a little bit longer, there's a small charge for that. All that said, I do have some links, as I mentioned, that I'll share afterwards to help with this, as well as some community resources as well. On that note, though, Johan, as you mentioned, unfortunately, software updates don't always go the way that we hoped. You want to talk to us a little bit about what options we have there in terms of troubleshooting?
Say it ain't so. Things can go wrong. Yes, they can, and they will. And that's why we have a job. That's quite brilliant. Can you see this okay?
Yeah, looks great.
So first of all, I wanted to start by sharing 5 absolutely brilliant resources that I found for troubleshooting software updates in Intune that have helped me on the journey to start to understand this sometimes fairly complicated setup. Not as complicated as Config Manager, but still there are a lot of things going on behind the scenes. So starting with sharing those. But then I wanted to show you some techniques that you can verify that the deployment service is functional in the environment. So if I head over to one of our class tenants over here that we use for trainings and stuff, and go over to Graph Explorer, if you punch in this URL, and this is in the troubleshooting documents that I mentioned here, and run the query, it's going to show you what you have available in your tenant. And what you want to search for is deployment service. So you want to see that that particular service is indeed provisioned with a status of success. So that means that your tenant is enrolled into it. Then you want to make sure that your devices have been enrolled. And there is not too much information about that out there, but a little bit. And there happened to be a query in the beta category of queries where you can basically ask Intune and say, hey, give me a list of all devices that happen to be enrolled, and it spits you back the device ID flag. Well, great. So now you have to go and look up those devices. But there is a shiny PowerShell script out there. First of all, this one from Petri, the Intune device details GUI, is really useful to find out everything there is to know about the device, except deployment service. It will show you what groups it's in. It will show you what normal software updates and settings catalog they are in. But as you can see, it does not show anything about feature updates. And based on the group membership here, you can kind of guess that this device probably is enrolled in feature updates, but it doesn't show here. So what we need a friend. We need a friend like Brian Dam. Happened to work with Patch My PC now, but he put together a beautiful little script that is called Get Intune Update Device Info. And you just run it. If your graph module is not installed, it's going to go ahead and install it for you, but it does have a dependency on the Microsoft.graph module. And then you punch in your computer name. And this will do a beautiful lookup of everything that is deployed to this, assigned, Intune calls it assignment, to the deployment service, which is even funnier. But here you can see that this particular device, sure enough, has a bunch of different IDs to it. It's a part of these groups over here. You can see that the tenant is enrolled to the deployment service. You can see that the device is enrolled to the deployment service, and it will tell you whether you have any feature update policies also. So down here. So beautiful, beautiful script to troubleshoot things that are otherwise kind of hard to find in the regular tools or in the console, because the console won't tell you. So yeah, I saw some good comments there in the chat also from Peter. Thank you for sharing that. PatchMyC does have a beautiful Intune integration for generating apps and stuff, and even updates for those applications. And that's something I use personally a lot. I mean, if I would scoot over to my app installation section here, there are probably 700 apps in this one or so. I did not create most of them myself. I had Patch My PC create them for me, because creating apps manually is fun the first 200, and then it just starting to get, you know. But yeah. That was pretty much what we wanted to cover. We'll make sure to make this recording available. We'll post it in the community. Thank you so much for joining us on a Friday. Thank you for being part of our community. We hope you'll be interested in joining us for more discussions, more events, asking questions, answering questions. And also, of course, for those that celebrate, happy holidays, and we'll see you around. Thank you.
Ditto. Thank you so much, Johan and Lindsay, and everybody else for joining us. I hope to see you soon. Thank you.